Welcome to this explainer, everyone. Today, we're jumping right into something just absolutely beautiful. It's a phenomenon that happens to practically all of us, but honestly, it rarely gets the attention it really deserves. We're going to unpack the fascinating, almost magical reality of human synchronicity. Think of this as a narrative journey into how we connect, and not just with our words, but through a hidden, underlying frequency.
I want you to picture this for a second. Have you ever just been going about your day, right? Someone randomly pops into your head, and bam, at that exact second, your phone lights up with a text from them? No way, right? Or maybe you show up to meet a best friend, and without planning it at all, you're both wearing the exact same weird shade of green. Sometimes you even land on the exact same obscure thought or a major life decision without saying a single word about it beforehand. I mean, these perfectly timed moments are just wild, aren't they? They feel strangely synchronized, like there's this entirely invisible connection humming right underneath the surface of our everyday interactions.
Okay, let's dive into this. When these moments happen, they literally feel like magic. Like a glitch in the matrix or some completely unexplainable phenomenon. But they actually represent this really beautiful tension. It's the exact intersection where cold analytical psychology meets the warm, deeply felt reality of just being human. So, it turns out, this isn't just magic. It's actually a highly sophisticated, completely invisible connection that we are building all the time. Let's start with part 1, the head, the cold psychology of coincidences. To really get how our brains are processing these synchronized events entirely behind the scenes, the absolute best way to think about it is through this metaphor of invisible Wi-Fi. We love to think of ourselves as these completely independent entities, just walking around in our own little bubbles. But the truth is, we're constantly broadcasting and receiving data on a frequency we aren't even consciously aware of. When you spend enough time around someone, you are subconsciously downloading their data. You learn their internal rhythm. You pick up on their pacing, their subtle energy shifts, their micro-habits. Your brain is essentially just staying connected to their network. If we look at this analytically, our brains are basically running background updates in a shared cloud. Because you share environments and experiences, your moods just naturally align. Because you're human, you unconsciously mirror each other's body language and tone. We all do it. And as you grow emotionally closer to someone, your brain's sensitivity to their specific patterns just absolutely skyrockets. Your brain is literally a master pattern recognition machine at work, constantly scanning for and totally excelling at noticing meaningful coincidences. So honestly, a lot of what feels like literal telepathy is actually just your brain doing some incredibly heavy lifting in the background. And this brilliantly illustrates how it's all driven by microsignals. It starts with just a subtle nudge. Maybe it's a sudden drop in barometric pressure, or a specific local news headline, or a shared milestone that you barely even notice is nudging both of you toward the exact same nostalgic mood. But your subconscious, it absolutely registers that hidden data and takes notes. Ultimately, the physical output aligns. You both suddenly text each other about grabbing a coffee at the exact same minute. It's simply the physical output of a massive amount of background data processing that finally perfectly synced up. Now, things like psychological mechanisms, confirmation bias, pattern recognition, and environmental mirroring, they brilliantly explain the how. That's the logic. But you know what? Logic alone totally misses the magic. It misses the emotional resonance, the defeat of isolation, and those parallel states that explain why it actually matters. Because, let's be real here, knowing the logical mechanics of a sunset doesn't make watching one any less breathtaking, right? The logic doesn't diminish the magic. Which brings us to part 2, the heart. Define modern isolation. What makes these experiences so incredibly powerful isn't whether they're actually supernatural or not. What makes them profound is how they completely defy our modern sense of isolation. We live in a world that constantly pushes us to be hyper-individualistic, right? Put your headphones in, look down at your screen, just stay in your own lane. But a sudden burst of synchronicity, it's this gentle, undeniable reminder that we aren't moving through life entirely alone. When you and a friend randomly buy the exact same book on the exact same day, it elevates ordinary life. It literally turns a mundane Tuesday into a shared canvas. Honestly, the phrase coincidentally having the same thoughts almost feels kind of inadequate here. It's really about parallel emotional states. That's when two lives briefly move on the exact same frequency. It just goes to show that human connection isn't built only through words. Your clothing choices, your timing, your energy, your daily habits, all of these become profound forms of an unconscious dialogue. You become tuned to each other through rhythm, memory, attention, and just pure emotional presence. Consider this profound reality. Silence isn't empty space, it's a conductor's baton keeping two people in the same rhythm. Just think about how beautiful that is. Even silence can create this deep, deep familiarity.
When you have that invisible Wi-Fi connection with someone, you don't always need to fill the air with words. The silence itself is doing the work of keeping your emotional states parallel. It is the absolute ultimate proof of a resonance between two people that goes way, way beyond what we can just see or hear.
So as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with this question to really chew on. Look at the people in your life. You know, the ones who text you right when you pick up your phone, the ones who laugh a split second before the joke even lands because they already know exactly what you're thinking. Who are you sharing an invisible Wi-Fi connection with right now? Take a moment today to appreciate that hidden magic, that beautiful background sync that proves we are all far more connected than we realize. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep looking out for those mundane Tuesdays that suddenly turn into shared canvases.